See it to believe it. People coming from everywhere. When the Spurs are jamming in the dome, nothing beats being there.
As you can tell from the opening sequence, the 1995-96 San Antonio Spurs were expected to be big time. Okay, maybe not as big as the Tower of the Americas, but big in the sense that they had already set a precedent the year before as one of the elite teams in the NBA. Following a record-setting year would be a hard task, but it would be one that Bob Hill and his team would be ready to challenge. And the makeup of the team looked very similar to the one from a season ago. The nucleus was set. Some new faces would add talent, depth, and development for the future. This was a hungry team, a team that had tasted success and wanted nothing less. David Robinson returned, stately as ever, as the league's reigning most valuable player. Avery Johnson was fired up, coming off his best season as a pro. Vinny Del Negro and Sean Elliott came back with career seasons waiting ahead for them. When this team set out on November 3rd, they were unaware of what was in store for them. They just knew they had the talent and will to be a success. What they finished with was a 59-23 record, the second best in franchise history. Over the past two seasons, the Spurs posted 62 and 59 wins for a .738 winning percentage, tying the Seattle Supersonics for the best combined record in the NBA in that span. Yes, even better than the Chicago Bulls, a team that set an NBA record with 72 victories this season. Although in their first 54 games, the Spurs posted a strong 36-18 record, winning 59 games did not look all that promising through the first two-thirds of the season. If there was a puzzling point during that stretch, it came at the power forward position. The Spurs had started 6 different players at the 4th spot, and while players like Will Perdue and Chuck Person performed admirably, it just didn't seem like a natural fit. Well, the lucky 7th starter at that position was the answer. It came in the form of veteran Charles Smith. Smith came to the team along with Monty Williams in early February in exchange for J.R. Reed and Brad Lohaus. 3 weeks after the trade, the Spurs set sail on NBA history. NBA history was also set during that span as San Antonio tied the 1971-72 LA Lakers for the most wins without a loss for a calendar month. The team that was trotting along with a 36-18 record suddenly found themselves with an impressive mark of 53-18 and in first place in the Midwest Division, 3 games ahead of the Utah Jazz. Who's responsible for such a surge? Surely it was a team effort. However, the efforts of David Robinson and Bob Hill earned personal awards. Robinson was named the NBA's Player of the Month for March. All he did was average 25.3 points a game, thanks to 52% shooting. Add to that 11.9 rebounds and 3.19 blocks. The Admiral played 4 of the 16 games that month with stitches in his right middle finger. Obviously, when you're the head coach, you get the glory when the team wins and the blame when the team loses. Well, in March, Bob Hill got the glory, being named IBM's Coach of the Month. It was the 3rd time that Hill had received the honor since taking over the team in 1994. The Spurs weren't very picky when it came to winning games, though there's no place like home where the Spurs went 33-8. The Spurs also boasted the league's second-best road record at 26-15. In fact, during the win streak, the Spurs tied a franchise record, winning 8 straight games away from San Antonio. While the Spurs were enjoying another season of on-court success, this past spring the organization enjoyed one of its finest moments ever. In February, it was announced that Spurs great George Gervin had been elected to the Basketball Hall of Fame, the first such honor for a member of the Spurs family, and one that was so deserved for the player that put San Antonio basketball on the map.
You're simply the best. Better than all the rest. Better than anyone. Anyone I've ever met. I'm stuck on your heart. I hang on every word you said. Tears apart.
From one Spurs legend to one in the making. The 1995-96 season for David Robinson was not unlike the one the season before, which earned him MVP honor. In fact, the Admiral finished second to Michael Jordan for this year's honor. Robinson was again dominating, scoring an average 25 points a game and pulling down 12.1 rebounds. He was the only player in the league to grab 1,000 rebounds this season. On April 2nd, he recorded his 14,000th career point. Topping the list of honors was Robinson's 4th selection to the All-NBA first team. All his stats averaged out to win an unprecedented 5th IBM Player of the Year honor. Robinson was also named to the NBA's All-Defensive Team for the 4th time. And oh yeah, he was an All-Star for the 7th time in his 7th year in the league. Joining Robinson on this year's All-Star team was Sean Elliott. For Elliott, the selection marked a return to his form from 3 years before when he was chosen as a Western Conference reserve. From being a near castaway in Detroit to one of the highest regarded players in the NBA, the 95-96 season was the best in 7 seasons as a pro for Sean Elliott. If you throw out his one season with the Pistons, Elliott has improved his scoring average every season he's been with the Spurs. Combined with David Robinson's 25 points a game, the scoring duo of Robinson-Elliott was the 2nd highest in the league behind Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. Spurs fans couldn't ask for much more when Elliott and Robinson were singled out as Western Conference All-Stars. especially as the Alamo City played host to the 1996 NBA All-Star Weekend. It was indeed a weekend to remember.
Yeah, I'm going for the dunk, and I never been a punk. Make your girl call me punk. Straight to the hoop, and I know how to shoot. If you wanna know the truth, then you better get the scoop. Coming out the mist with the mic in my fist, and everybody's looking, so you know I got a grip. You take me, that can't be. Shook and tipped like all rookies. Serving other dinners, if you wanna be a winner, then you better have some spinach with your dinner. So just point your head to the sky if you wanna ride, and keep your eye on the prize, 'cause it's live. It's all the way.
The All-Star Game also had a big effect on the city of San Antonio. The numbers are staggering. From February 8th through the 11th, San Antonio benefited from the $40 to $50 million economic impact that an estimated 21,000 visitors brought as they converged on downtown San Antonio, using 7,000 hotel rooms. And the numbers get even bigger. The Alamo City was put in the spotlight for practically the entire world. In fact, the All-Star Game was broadcast in a record 148 countries. In the U.S. alone, an estimated 35 million viewers watched the big game.
Having the NBA All-Star Game gave us a chance to show the world that San Antonio can host world-class events and do it well. It's something we not only enjoyed, but we can look back to and point to for others to say San Antonio can host any event of any size and be in world-class stature.
All-Star Weekend also appealed to the locals. More than 110,000 people attended the NBA Jam session at the Convention Center. It was a pure celebration of basketball and the city of San Antonio. And it was a star-studded event on and off the court. Celebrities exploring downtown San Antonio ranged from the mailman to the Terminator, the Fresh Prince to his airness. Not only was the weekend a galactic experience for the basketball connoisseur, it was 4 days of pure party, rivaled only by Fiesta.
Well, we know for a fact that the 4 or 5 days that the All-Star Game was here had an economic impact of $40 to $50 million. But we think the real economic impact is something we're going to see literally for the next 5 and 6 years as people return to our city because of that experience, as they bring their conventions to our city because of that experience, as they come to do business here because of that experience.
While Robinson and Elliott received the national recognition as All-Stars, they were just part of a deep Spurs team filled with All-Star caliber players. Leading the way has to be the Spurs' little big man, Avery Johnson. As stated earlier, AJ came into this season bitter about the way the previous season concluded. The point guard was determined to do something about it. And if he had to take things over, well, then that's what he would do. Avery Johnson had become one of the most dangerous playmakers in the NBA. AJ could penetrate, find the open man, pull up for the jumper, and was the best on the break. Johnson missed NBA history by a mere 0.4 of a point. He would have joined Derek Harper as the only two players to increase their scoring average in each of their first 8 seasons in the league. However, a 13.1 points a game average is not disappointing in the least. Of course, the role of the point guard is to distribute the ball, and AJ ranked 3rd in the league, doling out a career-best 9.6 assists per game. And when it came to handling the ball, no two teammates were better than Avery Johnson and Vinny Del Negro. The pair combined for a 3.74 to 1 assist-to-turnover ratio, better than backcourts consisting of Stockton and Hornacek, and Van Exel Jones. A.J. again led the Spurs charge into the community. During the hectic NBA schedule, somehow A.J. and his teammates managed to take time for San Antonio.
I'll be there for you. When the rain starts to fall, I'll be there for you. Like I've been there before. I'll be there for you. 'Cause you're there for me too. Still in bed.
The Spurs' effect on the community goes way beyond winning and losing on the court. And the instrument by which the players and staff touch the lives of local families is through the Spurs Foundation. The Spurs Foundation is dedicated to the betterment of life for area youth, and the Spurs' focus is to help foster a positive environment for children at school, in the neighborhoods, and at home. The way they do that? Through a countless number of events, appearances, and donations. However, what is most impressive is the hands-on approach in the community. Over the past year, between players, coaches, staff, the Coyote, and former players, the Spurs made over 1,200 appearances. With that many appearances, the Spurs Foundation's presence could be found all over town, including the Drug-Free Basketball League, the Coyote Kids Educational Troop, and the Fannie Mae Neighborhood Revitalization Program, plus food and toy drives and the NBA Stay in School program. This year alone, the Spurs donated over $500,000 into the community. The Spurs as a team had another career year off the court, and indeed lived up to the phrase, San Antonio's team on and off the court. 2-point lead, alley-oop, and David is there. And in transition, A.J. sets up a person three-pointer. For Vinny Del Negro, it was another career year. Have you noticed? A lot of Spurs had career years. Vinny solidified his role at the 2 spot by averaging 14.5 points a game while playing in all 82 games this season. Not only did he score, he was consistent, and he was accurate, hitting 50% of his shots from the field. When he was on, which he often was, he transformed into Vinny Del Fuego, a deadly shooter coming off picks, capable of knocking down the three-pointer, and twice this year stunning opponents and teammates alike with his version of the dunk. Any more players with career years? Chuck Person may have averaged more points during his 10-year career, but his versatility may have come as a shock to the average fan. Sure, we know the Rifleman for his three-point prowess. However, his skills as a rebounder were uncovered as the team looked for help at the 4 spot. His 5.2 boards a game may be a modest number, yet he was there many times for the clutch rebound, and twice this season posted a career high of 18 rebounds in a game. Let's not overlook his contributions as a three-point specialist, though. For the second year in a row, Person set a club record in three-pointers made with a personal high of 190. And on March 14th against the Miami Heat, the Rifleman became the 4th player in NBA history to record 1,000 career trades. Chuck for 1,000. There it is! 1,000 three-pointers for the Rifleman. Person split his time this year with Will Perdue. Obtained in the preseason trade with the Bulls, Perdue promised a blue-collar work ethic, a championship attitude, and the size to provide Robinson with an ample backup. Will Perdue provided the Spurs with all of that, and then some. In filling up the middle, Perdue went to work absorbing the physical blows, pulling down 6 rebounds a game, and finding the knack of putting the ball in the hole, hitting 52% of his shots. The 95-96 Spurs were a team in every sense of the word. The roster filled out with role players who would each make their own contributions. Rookie Corey Alexander received some valuable experience as a backup point guard. Dell Demp spent a major part of the season on the injured list, but showed a flair for scoring when he did play. Likewise for Monty Williams, who displayed raw talent and some spectacular dunks. Then there were the big guys on the bench, Cadillac Anderson and Carl Herrera, both of whom saw spot starting duty during the season. Perhaps the most noted role player was Doc Rivers. Now in his 13th season in the pros, Doc epitomized the heart and hustle of the entire team. Doc never really put up big numbers, but had a knack for the big play or the big jumper. Unfortunately, Doc was unable to carry on his reckless, abandoned style into the postseason as he injured his back just 2 games into the playoffs.
Dribbling anyway.
With the regular season in the books, it was now time for the playoffs. It's an emotional time, a time of pressure, a time when only one team finishes the season on a winning note, a time for the Spurs to take their chances. By virtue of winning their 9th divisional title and having the 2nd best record in the Western Conference, the Spurs pulled the number 7 seed, the Phoenix Suns, as their first-round opponent. It was obvious then that the Western Conference was going to be tough for anyone to survive. The Spurs took the series 3-1, blowing Phoenix out in the first game by 22, followed by a pair of close games, including a 1-point win by the Suns. Then again stomping the Suns in the last game with an 18-point victory. Looking for heroes from that series? Try Avery Johnson. In the 4-game series against Kevin Johnson, a guard who has always given A.J. problems, Avery Johnson had one of the best stretches of his career, averaging 14.5 points a game and 13 assists a game. David Robinson also came up big for the Spurs, turning in a 30-point-a-game average with 11.5 rebounds. That's not to say that the rest of the team didn't contribute. Sean Elliott made things happen, chipping in 17.5 points a game. In the 2 blowouts, Vinny Del Negro poured in 30 and 25 points respectively. While all the Spurs piled on and running the Suns out of the playoffs, what was ahead for San Antonio would challenge and puzzle the team for quite some time to come. The regular season has usually meant war between the Spurs and Midwest Division rival, the Utah Jazz. But uncharacteristically this season, the Spurs walked right through the Jazz, winning 3 of 4, including a rare sweep of the Jazz in Salt Lake City. What a difference the playoffs made in this rivalry. The Jazz shocked the Spurs in the Alamo Dome in Game 1. Based on that one game, the intensity increased between these old rivals. The Jazz defense continually hammered Robinson inside and handcuffed Johnson on the perimeter, thus strangling the usually potent Spurs offensive attack and finally putting the 95-96 Spurs to rest, taking the series 4-2. When the final result falls short of lofty expectations, it's hard to realize the positive. However, if there was something good that came out of that Spurs-Jazz series, it had to be the turnout and atmosphere for Game 5 in the Alamo Dome. After losing a pair of games in Utah and being down in the series 3-1, it would have been easy for the fans to give up and throw in the towel for the season. For Spurs fans, that was not the case. In what had to be the game of the season in the Dome, over 34,000 screaming fans came out to help lift the Spurs to a big Game 5 victory. Those that were there that night know that really and truly, nothing beats being there. What you just saw was a season of excitement and accomplishment. The 95-96 Spurs posted the franchise's second-best regular season record. David Robinson played at an MVP clip again, and 3 starters, Del Negro, Elliott, and Johnson, had career years. Let's also not forget the fun this season brought us, particularly the very special All-Star Weekend. The nucleus of this club is set, and the future remains very bright for this team. This organization also remains very dedicated to the community, from its involvement via the Spurs Foundation to fun events such as this summer's Fan Fiesta. The Spurs franchise strives every day to be San Antonio's team on and off the court. Here's to another great season, and for an exciting one just around the corner.
Stay